Hi everyone. Sorry I've been away for a little while. I've not really felt 100%. I'm doing a video today of some work that I did the other day following not a very good night's sleep, I would say. But very often if I have trouble sleeping, I imagine I'm painting a picture and it really does start to send me off. So this particular morning I really didn't know what to do with myself, so I thought, right, I'll go and do some painting. It always makes me feel better. Didn't have a clue what I was going to do, and it was a really funny night. We've got a dog and he wasn't too good. He gets up and down in the night, so obviously wants to go out, so you have to get up and let him out. So I'd had a dreadful night's sleep and didn't really feel much like doing anything, to be quite honest, but went into the studio and tried to get myself a couple of quiet minutes, at least an hour hopefully, so that I could just sort of get my head together really and get rid of this sort of feeling of nothingness. It was really weird. Whether I was tired, I really don't know, but it was quite a strange feeling. I thought initially I was probably coming down with something, and because I'd got a headache and my throat felt sore, and I was tired and lethargic, and I thought, oh no, the dreaded COVID. But as it turned out, it wasn't that. I think it was just tiredness. But so I went into the studio and got my art journal out and started to work on a painting. And what I tend to do when you're confronted with this white page, it can be quite daunting, and I just usually get a piece of charcoal, make a few lines on it, and then smudge them with the brush, which I've done here. The page has had gesso put on it. It's just one layer of gesso just to stop it soaking through. And what I've actually done, I've speeded up the video because it did take a little while, but I thought we'd have a chat and I'd just talk through how I was feeling, what was going on, and the painting really. So I'd put these lines down, wasn't really sure what I was going to do, and just picked out a few colours. This is magenta, and these are golden flow, I think they are. They're in little sort of bottles. You can see them there at the side. The one I'm using there is Liquitex, so the same sort of thing, and they're lovely. They have a sort of translucency. You can sort of layer them and see the other colour underneath, and I quite enjoy using them and sort of scrubbing them in with my brush. I'm still trying to find a brush that I like, but I found this one in my stash, and seems to be my favourite at the moment. So there was sort of pinks, and then there was this, I think that's ultramarine I picked up, which has got a sort of like a purplish undertone, which is lovely. It's easy to mix with certain reds and make some really lovely purples colours. So I've used that, and I started thinking, now what? I was starting to feel a bit better, and it was just a case of playing with the colours and seeing what's happening. What I've put on here is a gesso. Although I put gesso on the page to let it dry, when I'm painting I also use gesso occasionally to perhaps sort of change how the thing looks, because it adds it's a translucent effect rather than putting it on white acrylic, which tends to be opaque, which would blot out what was underneath. The gesso allows you to see some of the layers underneath, and so I'm gradually working through, layer upon layer, and you can see that this particular paint is quite translucent, because it allows you to see the layers that I've done underneath, and it builds up and creates different effects. the thing with painting, especially, I particularly find with acrylic paintings, abstract paintings, because it's the feelings that you're painting. You paint your feelings, and very often there's no plan, there's no rhyme or reason, and they go through an ugly stage. And I find that they have to go through this stage of where you don't know what you're doing, you're just sort of putting stuff on and hoping for the best sometimes. And eventually it does start to then make sense. I did used to do traditional watercolours. I still do, but I've sort of done a lot more abstract of late. But and the thing with traditional watercolours or an oil or anything like that is that you do actually have an idea of what you're going to paint, because you've probably got the subject in front of you, you've got a photograph, or you've done a sketch. So you know what your end result is supposed to look like. I find with abstract, it's you paint how it's the feelings. I unless you're an abstract painter, you probably think I'm talking a load of old tosh, but it's you make a mark and you think, oh, I quite like that, so you do it again, which you'll see here. I love using my fingers to smudge colours, and I love that effect it gives. And then sometimes something will happen and it's really quite unexpected, and I think, oh, that's nice, I'll do that again. So it really does take on a life of its own, and it evolves. It changes from how it started out to how it ends. Very often it's, sometimes a completely different piece of work. And it's really quite therapeutic. I find it very therapeutic, and I find it fascinating how the colours react and what happens to them when you sort of smudge them around and get your fingers dirty. Now here I just noticed that looking at it, there seems to be a hummingbird. I don't know if you can actually see that in the work. It wasn't intentional, but it just seeing it back afterwards, I noticed this bird appeared. Perhaps it's an omen, who knows? I use my gold. I love the gold. It's a gold metallic by Liquitex, and it's one of the nicest I've found so far. And I like to have a little smudge of that now and then, and I was not doing it at the moment, but when the light catches the page and there's this little smudge of gold around the place, it seems to bring it to life. Yeah, that's all I can say. I put some music at the background here. I mean, I don't know if you like it or not. I mean, I don't think you can turn it off unless you turn me off. Perhaps you don't even like me talking, but just trying different things to give a bit of interest, really. I had, as I said to you before, I had such a dreadful night's sleep, and I've been imagining drawing this picture, not this one, but a picture, and it calms me down and tries to get me off to sleep, which very often it does. And with this painting, I have an old book. It's an old paperback book that I really tried to get into about an artist, but I really couldn't get to grips with it. And I use it in my collage. And what I tend to do is I tear out a random page, and then I have a look on the page for anything that seems to leap out at me that sort of resonates, means something, a bit of meaning in life. And it just so happened that this piece that I stick down, this small little piece, it said, I just dropped something on the floor, sorry. Rachel was woken by a painting, or rather by the idea of one. And I just couldn't believe it. There's me, trying to sleep and imagining this painting that I was dreaming of to help get me to sleep. And there was these words on this page. And I just could not believe it. And so obviously it had to go in the painting. And once I'd got that stuck down, I actually started to feel much better. It was really strange. I had this sort of bit of like euphoria come over me. And I found another bit of collage. These ones are for I've got a little gel plate, and occasionally I'll play around with colours and the leftover paints, and I come up with these little bits that I can use for collage. So I stuck that down. Here's another bit of the same page. And this piece says, her response on waking was anguish, such as one felt when torn from any dreaming rapture, and she shut her eyes again, breathing deeply in an effort to return to sleep and recapture the dream where she'd left off. Well, that was me. That was me about 3 o'clock in the morning, trying to get back to sleep and recapture this painting that I was painting in my mind. I mean, how bizarre. I mean, you couldn't make it up. And once I'd got these pieces, as I said to you before, once I'd got these pieces stuck down, it was fantastic. You know, it just seemed, I seemed to know where I was going with it all. So I'm just feeling now that I'm coming to the end of the piece. You know, people say, how do you know when you're done? Well, to be honest, sometimes you don't, and you just have to leave it. And, you know, you possibly go back to it later, but I was feeling I was coming to the end, and my mood changed. I felt so much better. I mean, it is true what they say about art being a form of therapy. Anybody amongst you who are listening, if you aren't really artists and you don't tend to paint or have never thought of doing it, I would strongly recommend that you think about it. I mean, you can pick up some cheap watercolours, a cheap set of acrylics in a supermarket or little art store. We have a shop called The Works here in the UK. I mean, they sell them. You can buy cheap ones online. Amazon will probably have them. Get yourself a sketchbook. I mean, it doesn't have to be expensive, and do have a go. And the thing is, don't think I can't do it. I hear this so often, but who's going to see your work? I mean, I show mine to you, obviously, because I feel it helps me, and it's helped me throughout the lockdowns we've had with this pandemic. But if you want to have a go, you don't have to show your work to anybody. It's yours. And if it means it helps you mentally, you know, with your mental health, have a go at it. You know, I just find it so therapeutic. I find it is a world that I can enter. Nobody else knows my world. And I'm sure artists are wired differently to everybody else. But I do this for me. There are some of you who are watching this who have probably not even got this far, to be quite honest. You think, well, that's a load of old rubbish, I'll turn it off and go and look at something else. Well, that's fine. That's fine. That's your choice. I do this for me. And if perhaps it encourages somebody who's listening and watching this to have a go as well, even better. You know, I mean, I just cannot explain to you the joy that it gives me and the peace of mind. I mean, we all have trials and tribulations in our lives, and there are times that we actually need that quiet space. And if that quiet space means, you know, painting in an art journal, which is your own, do it. You don't have to show it to anybody. I mean, I tend, like here now, I tend to write on my paintings. Sometimes they're things that go through my mind. Sometimes it's just like automatic writing and doesn't really mean anything. But at the end of the day, the chances of somebody actually being able to read it apart from me is extremely slim. But it sort of puts my feelings in perspective. And one of the best bits, of course, as most artists know, is when you take the masking tape off. Because it actually, I heat mine up, as you can see here, I use the hairdryer, and it just softens the glue a little bit, so it sort of stops the paper tearing. But once you take this tape off, it's wonderful. The picture looks totally different. And as you'll see here, there we are. So thanks for listening. I hope I didn't bore you. I hope you found some interest in it. And I'll leave you with this, and I'll see you again next time. Take care, everybody. Bye.